Hi, this is Kamran. The purpose of this project is to replicate Sutton's experiment for figure 3, 4, and 5 in his 1988 paper on TD lambda. The setup here is that of a bounded random walk problem, where you start off at an initial state such as D. You either go right or left with equal probability until you reach an absorbing stage, which is G or A. So you could end up with a sequence such as DCDEFG or a much larger sequence. Using the rules defined before in the previous slide, I ended up creating 1,000 sequences and grouped them by 10 to create 100 test cases. Each of the test cases was then passed through the TD lambda algorithm where the weights were updated. Finally, for evaluation, I performed the root mean square error calculation of the learned W vector with the true probability that I know for this MDP. All the root mean square errors were then averaged to produce a better result. In the first experiment, I varied lambda and plotted the root mean square error. The results were very similar to what Sutton had. The lowest value was at TD0 while the highest was at TD1. For the weight vector updates, in this case happened only after each training set. In the second experiment, I varied the alphas and demonstrated the result of 4 different lambdas, showing the root mean square error here. And generally the trend is very similar to what Sutton had, except for the TD0 case, and the reasons for that are discussed in the paper. For the experiment, the updates to W happened after each training sequence. The third experiment flows from the first two. Here I've produced the RMSE for the best alpha at each lambda. The lowest value for lambda here is at for the root mean square here is at 0.2. This is in contrast to 0.0 in the first experiment. Finally, some of the considerations and assumptions that I had in this project. The first one was the convergence. For convergence, I used L2 norm of the difference between the weights. If the value was less than the epsilon, I consider my sequence to have converged. Otherwise, I would continue to update the weights. For the first experiment, the learning rate wasn't defined, and so I defined it to be 0.01. For the gradient of the prediction value with respect to W for linearly dependent systems, the value is equal to the observation, and so this was one of the assumptions that I made in my project. Finally, in conclusion, replicating research is not an easy process. A lot of the time we have missing information, such as in case of the Sutton's paper, and that's why the results are very different from what they actually were when he produced them. Well, that's all I had for the presentation. Hope you liked it. Thank you.